going, CJ?
It's going all right. Warren, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for asking. Welcome to the Down in Front Podcast, last call edition. Here, what we did was try to give you a last call, bit of an episode, just unedited, just to kind of hang out, talk about some stuff that we usually don't talk about. But I'm pretty sure for the next month, we only are going to be talking about a little bit more than a month. Who knows? Yeah. We're only going to be talking about Game of Thrones on our last call segment. So we'll be releasing these with our other episodes. We have Hellboy coming up. We have Avengers and Endgame coming up. Bunch of good stuff. But tonight, we're only talking about Game of Thrones. And specifically, we're talking about Season 8, Episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So, super pumped to be talking about that. We usually skip the drinking and what else we've been watching and really get to the nitty gritty. So at first, and I want to say on the top, if you haven't seen the episode, we will be spoiling it. And everything else in the Game of Thrones, like series, lore, you name it, everything else we will be sort of spoiling. So keep that in mind. And we're going to have some good time. So, I'm going to start by looking at a couple different things. You know, overall, we'll talk about our overall feelings of the episode. We'll talk about some of the ratings. I'm curious about that. I'll read a bit of an episode description before we get into talking about, you know, some of the characters, what actually went on in the episode, and some of the things that we're looking forward to for the next episode. So, before we begin, I want to introduce our very special guest again for the second time in a row ever. We've never had a guest show up back to back. Thanks so much, CJ, for coming, man. What's going on?
Wow, going back to back. Hopefully that doesn't need to be copyrighted. Anyways,
we'll be good.
Excited to be here. Really excited to talk about Game of Thrones again. I feel like I can't talk about it enough. It's just like running my life at the moment, but really excited to be here.
Good. I mean, it's always great to have you on, man. We're super pumped. So we know we talked a lot about it last week, so we're just going to get into the nitty-gritty for right now. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, talk about the episode summary from IMDb. The Battle of Winterfell is approaching. Jaime is confronted with the consequences of his past. A tense interaction between Sansa and Daenerys follows. I do not think that episode title or that description gives anything what happens in this show, in this episode, but that's okay. Overall, sort of the thing I did want to kind of mention is this season so far. So we got episode 1, and that was pretty big, and a lot of people felt like, okay, we just kind of want to wade through some of the slower parts, and so that was graded in IMDb at 8.6. We got episode 2. Episode 2 definitely sort of felt like more like episode 1. Maybe even people think that it's even worse than episode 1. But episode 2 was actually graded at 8.9. Oh. So I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts on these grades, because usually we never look at the grades. These are the only 2 episodes of the season that are under an hour. So what do you think of the grades so far from episode 1 called Winterfell and episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
I would say I'd have to definitely agree with that 8.9 versus that 8.6 for episode 1. I thought A Night of the Seven Kingdoms was definitely a step up in terms of like way more emotion being brought forth, and then just like way more character development. I would say episode 1 was more of like, hey, remember me? And good to see you again. Not really pushing along any like characters or any like plot lines or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Episode 2 definitely was like a little more like kind of meat and potatoes behind who these people are and like what's going to be driving them in the episodes to come.
Yeah, I'm curious because, I guess one of my biggest sort of criticisms or issues that I do have with it, and we're definitely going to mention this, everybody else has probably already kind of talked about it, was we only have 6 episodes a season. And we now have had 2 hours worth of content that is sort of recapping these last 9.5 years, maybe over 10 years. And so I don't necessarily know how I feel about the shortness of the actual season and them dedicating almost 2 hours worth of, hey, we're going to do a reintroduction, and then we finally get in the moments where we have these characters has been estranged all their life. I mean, the life of the show, and now they're finally coming together. I think the biggest thing that could have happened was at least increase the episode by 1 or combine episode 1 and 2 into a 90-minute episode. Yeah. I think that probably would have, like, I can't necessarily agree with the grade of the second one. I think the second one's a little bit lower. I like Winterfell, the first one, especially because it felt like a reintroduction, but it felt like episode 2 was more of the same thing. A character comes up out of nowhere who shows up. Same thing with Theon. Same thing with Jaime. And then people who never seen each other for a long time finally rekindle. I just don't necessarily know what was different between episode 1 and 2.
I think for me, a lot of what the episode 2 is meant to do is like, it's a continuation of the like reunion from episode 1, but now we have these conversations that we're like, okay, a horn blows. Like, are these two characters never going to speak to each other again? Mm-hmm. Or this horn blows, like, we'll continue speaking later. Like, I just felt like this episode set the table way better than episode 1 did in terms of like what to expect next and what not to expect next.
Do you think we need episode 1 and 2, or would you like to see a more compilation of both?
I think we needed episode 2 because we needed more time to dedicate to Jaime because he had a lot of people he needed to reconcile with.
True.
Versus like a lot of folks in episode 1, it was like a lot of like one-on-one, not necessarily like Jon. I'm just throwing this out there. Like Jon didn't need to speak to everybody. Like he had to reconnect with Sam, Dan, like certain people. But in episode 2, Jaime needed to reconnect with Bran. Jaime needed to reconnect with Dany. Jaime needed to reconnect with Brienne, like,
it's with everybody. With
Tyrion, a lot of people. Yeah. And I think we needed to give Jaime this episode, for the most part, to like allow him the space. I feel like it wouldn't have done him justice to do it in one episode with everyone in episode 1.
I'm all for it. I'm not saying to give me less Game of Thrones. Yeah. I just say if you give me these moments that we've never really had the time before this season. We did earlier on when we were still going from the source material. Now we're not entirely sure if it's source material, right? Because they know the ending. They know exactly how it's going to happen from George R. R. Martin. Yep. So people complain about they've already deviated from the source material, but we actually don't know. And so, or he could never finish the story. Heaven forbid that happens, but it's that's a possibility, right? So,
George, hopefully you're writing still.
George, keep it up, man. Let us know. I can definitely help you out. I'm not a good writer, but we can figure it out. But the thing that I always think about it is, I would want more of this. I love everything that happened in this episode. I overall enjoyed some of these bits, and I think that you're talking about character moments more. In episode 2, there was just a lot more lulls and things that we just like empty pockets of time that was like, this sex scene was way too long, man. Like I was like, come on, man. Like there were just things like there's the little girl that we talked about with Davos, and we saw Gilly, and they were just. It almost felt as if they needed to reintroduce everybody at Winterfell instead of just the people, the pillars that we need to kind of focus on, and I think that's what made it a bit kind of long and like to me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Though I will say I was really excited to see Ghost again. It's been a really long time since we've seen Ghost.
Yeah,
and the fact that they ignored him for that entire scene, unforgivable.
Kind of fucked up, but that's okay. All right. So let's get into like the actual meat and potatoes, if you call it, of the episode. So we have Jaime coming back. That's definitely going to be the biggest sort of thing. The other kind of things that are happening in this episode is that we have, Arya finally gets her weapon from Gendry. We have Tyrion and Jaime finally having a moment, although dark and kind of weird, but they are having a moment. We have Jaime sort of connected with Brienne. Tormund and the Night's Watch actually comes back, and they're also going to be in Winterfell. We have Theon now in Winterfell, who's getting reconnected with Sansa. Dany and Sansa have a moment, and then Sansa still knows that she doesn't want to be a part of the kingdom. They want to make sure that the North is going to be sort of disconnected. Huge moment here in which Jon and Dany actually finally have that sort of reveal. We've been sitting on our we've been sitting and waiting for it. It's like they finally have that reveal, and and it's also kind of cut off. I love the fact, and we currently are watching it muted right now, but I love the fact that moment was kind of cut off because the start of the battle, and it was like happens. We don't have time to process this. There's other shit that's kind of upon us right now, so I thought that was kind of great. And so a bunch of other stuff. So I do want to kind of toss it to you and just talk to me about the episode. Talk to me about like overall thoughts, things that you currently have in this episode, and some highlights that you really, really dug.
Yeah, I think for me, just bringing it back to Jamie, he's got this huge weight off his shoulder now. Bran has like basically exonerating him, saying, okay, like that was then, like we need you now to help us fight the dead. And I feel like Jamie now kind of is freely now walking around, like, okay, like where do I fit in? And then him reaching out to Brienne, being like, I want to serve under you. Like that was one of like a tearjerker moment for me, where Brienne doesn't really know how to take it, because she's like, you've gone this whole conversation without insulting me. Yeah. And like that was their relationship for so long. And just like they're always like going back and forth. And now Jamie is a completely different person, it feels like. And Brienne is just like, has no idea what to do with it. She just kind of nods her head and is like, all right, I guess I'm going to be like your commander for this battle. So I thought that was a really, really great moment for me, where like kind of Brienne is now this figure who's going to be in command, and Jamie is now bowing down to somebody else. Maybe literally later, but we can talk about that at a different time. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely that. I didn't see a lot of Jon in this episode. However, when Jon was there, he made a very big impact, including with his reveal at the very end of this episode, which left on a cliffhanger, that freaking horn blowing. I felt like Theon when he took over Winterfell and he wanted to kill that horn blower. Like, dude, stop.
Well, how many... So two things I do want to mention there.
Yeah. Was it
the amount of horns that we see for White Walkers while they got the Night's Watch? Or was it just like one horn blow?
So there is... at Winterfell, I believe, unlike at the Wall, where the Wall has the person with the one horn, two horns, or three, they just have someone who blows the horn, just like...
That would have been...
to say whatever. Just like, hey, rider approaching.
Shit's about to go down.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome if it was 3 blasts.
Yes.
God, that would have been dope.
Just think about 3 blasts. There's 3 members of the Night Watch left from Jon's, like, and class of 35 AC in Westeros.
Just pulling those dates out of your ass, bro. I was like,
I don't know.
What?
I was going to say 2005, and I was like, that's not this world.
Okay, I was like, okay.
35 AC.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so there's a lot of... We're definitely going to deviate. We're going to have a lot of tangents in this episode. I'm letting everybody know right now, as you already didn't. You mentioned a huge thing of 3s. We will talk about that. I'm not going to get into that one too much, but 3s were also huge throughout the entire story. The 3 siblings, 3 dragons, 3 Lannisters. I mean, lots of different things with 3s. I'm glad they kind of show a great visual of Jon, Sam, and the last member of the Night's Watch
is Ned.
Ned, and they're all looking out over the wall as if they're and now my watch has begun. And they have a great moment that goes back to when Jon and they all sort of like said their vows to the weirwood of the tree that was beyond the wall. And so I'm glad they actually kind of gave some time into that. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm glad that Jon was not in this episode, going back to your first point, because it felt like, and now that I'm kind of thinking this and kind of talking about this out loud, the first episode felt like we had to reintroduce all the main characters of the series.
Yep.
This episode made it seem like we had to introduce all the side and the B characters of the series. And it's funny because Jamie started off as a main character and transitioned into a B character. Not saying that the B characters are less important, no. But because I think Tyrion is also a main character, but I like the fact that they kind of gave it... Also, so is Arya as a main character, right? I'm not saying that literally all side characters. I know somebody is itching to call me out right now as you're listening to this. But I like it. They definitely had a focus, and they gave a bit more time. Although I think that it was too much. I can care less about this random farmer dude who's not a warrior. I don't give a shit about you. You're probably going to die. But I really like the fact that we even had a moment with Missandei and Grey Worm. And although there was tons of racism happening in the North, what's going on, Canada? Fuck you guys. But, like, I don't know why they had so much focus on racism again. This is the second episode, so what are the showrunners exactly? What are they trying to kind of show us there? This village was supposed to be named for the Honorable Ned Stark, and yet this is how they kind of treat black people there. It's kind of weird, but whatever. So I think that's actually pretty interesting. Like, I like that there was at least a focus on side characters and supporting characters throughout the entire series, and how now some of these supporting characters are finally getting the recognition that they deserve. Pod now knows how to fight. Podrick, he has a little mustache. I'm like, oh, my dog, but he's gonna die. So
great though.
Yeah, right. But Sir Brienne of Tarth, right, finally get ignited, which is like a fucking great moment. And so we at least have these moments. Even the Hound sitting there talking with Arya, just drinking and shooting shit, and she goes, well, I'm not gonna waste my time with you, you old something. Like,
you two old shit.
Yeah, you two old shits. And goes straight and bangs one out with freaking Gendry, which is great, bro. Like, good for you, Arya. Get your shit. So I at least like that, because Gendry, in this episode, it was kind of weird, because I also felt like that was a huge reveal that we all knew, and I think people even forgot that he was like, oh yeah, I'm Robert Baratheon's bastard. Oh, shit, bro. Like, nobody said anything about that. That was fucking great. And it'll be crazy if Arya gets pregnant with a Baratheon. Because they've been trying to do that. That's what started it.
Yeah.
So,
man, that would be...
And Baratheon and Lyanna Stark. I know, man. Robert Baratheon, Lyanna Stark, he loved her. We're getting a lot of different tangents. Lots of tangents, but I loved it.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, bro.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it would be good. So, yeah. But what else you
got? Let's see. So the last thing I left off was talking about Jon. I'm very interested to see, because he did not seem like he was going to be like, oh, actually I don't really want the throne. It just kind of left it off on like, does he want to take it? Like, does he not want it? Like, he's so fervently been like, no, I don't want all these titles, but people keep heaping these titles on him. He's like, I don't know, I don't want this. I never wanted this. I believe he said to Sansa at some point, like, I didn't want to be king of the North. You gave that to me. Or I think he said that to Lyanna, not Sansa. Sorry. And he's gracious about it, but now it seems like, does he want it? Like, we don't. I mean, obviously we don't know. We're gonna find out soon, hopefully, probably in the next couple episodes.
But it's, even going off of that point, just looking at Jon's past and his history, he didn't want to be King of the White Watch.
Yep.
But everybody gave it to him. He didn't want to be King of the North. They gave it to him. There's a bit of a struggle. I'm glad that Kit Harington, as the actor, is kind of exploring this, because when he has the ability to choose who he wants to be. He was a King's Watch commander, Lord Commander of the King's Watch. He was King of the North. Night's Watch, excuse me. I was like, King's Watch sounds weird. Night's Watch, thank you. And so everybody else is choosing all of these things to be, and he's choosing just like he wants to be Jon. He's a bastard. Now this huge drop comes last week to that he finally finds out who he is, and he has all this royal blood, but then sort of treated like a bastard his entire life. I feel like it's a bit of complex, because it's like, well, now he chose to be Jon and being in love. Not only with Daenerys, but even before, and he didn't know anything. And now the fact that he finally knows something, what is he going to choose to be? Is he going to accept the Aegon name? Is he going to accept the Jon name? Is he going to accept that, Ned's going to be my father anyway? I feel like that's how I kind of saw his weird brooding, and he has to, like, also, he had all the screen time last week, so I'm cool. Yeah. And he's going to be he's one of the best fighters, so we know we're going to see him. I felt like that's what I got from him a little bit, even with this kind of small kind of conversations that he had in this episode. And I like that directly from the last episode. It definitely seemed like he's processing, but he's not. He's at least kind of showing. And when he's telling Daenerys, it was a very, very great look, because when Jon found out that he was Rhaegar's son, Aegon Targaryen, the focus is on Jon and how it felt with him. Just like when Sam found out his father and his brother were burned alive, the focus is on him. Yeah. So now when Jon is telling people who they are, the focus is on Daenerys, who all her life basically, almost all her life.
Yeah.
She was one of the last Targaryens. I didn't say one of the last Targaryens because we know there was a couple other ones floating around.
Yeah,
so now, exactly. Well, yeah, Aemon was that dude. That dude was great. But now that it's showing up as like actually everything that you said of being the last heir in line, all this shit to rule, that's actually not true at all.
Yeah.
I've been standing right here. I'm standing right here, and I don't know what to do. So I like how they at least kind of approach that, but they didn't quite resolve it in this episode.
And now thinking back on it, as Jon is telling Dany, it's like he's almost searching. Okay, how are you going to react to this? Because now that's going to potentially change what I'm going to do. Which, oh man, so fascinating. So kind of moving on from Jon. Dany and Sansa, what did you think about that little sit down they had?
You know, I'm kind of bummed because I'd love to have, again, I'm trying not to mention as much, but I like these scenes. I like some of this dialogue, especially I'm curious to see, and it's kind of a bummer that what happens from here. I'm curious to see exactly what happens with Sansa and Daenerys because they are very similar. The characters, how they kind of go through. Very different, but still similar characters of what they actually kind of wanted and kind of go through with. But I would have loved to have Daenerys come up with that idea on herself. Many times we talk about women rulers and we see women rulers in this actual show and how it made it seem as though there may be a woman that's going to be there, but there's a guy behind her kind of playing the strings and kind of being more wise. And I was kind of bummed. I know that Tyrion's supposed to be one of the smartest people, but she also should be just as smart, right? And I think we can have this great example of you have Cersei. She has a bunch of guys, a bunch of men behind her, but she's still by far the most cunning and smartest person in King's Landing. We have Dany, right? We have Dany, who also is kind of learning up to that, but she's still not. She still has to be sort of moved and nudged into, hey, you should make friends with Sansa. By Jorah, who's a man. I'm like, I really wish that she should have been able to. The show writer should have actually allowed her to come up with that on her own, and not somebody else who's really not the best person to be saying that, to kind of tell her like, hey, you should go and like actually make friends with this other queen. So that's the only kind of bummer thing I liked about that. I wanted to see Dany kind of come up with her own. As far as the actual content of it, I know it has to be in there, that there has to be the Game of Thrones, the title of the actual show, but I don't care about. I mean, I'm all about the living and the dead. I think a lot of people else is about living and the dead. But as we talked about before, the end game, much like Blewett was talking about, is going to be the living versus the living, right? The King's Landing and everybody else. So I see why they had to put it in the show. I just don't understand why they have to be so abrasive to each other.
My theory on that, is just. I think the showrunners are trying to show Dany as uncomfortable because most Targaryens that have come north have not been successful. Like something about coming up to the north, like, is just doesn't mesh, doesn't like get on for them as like just a house in general. So I think they're just trying to show her as being uncomfortable and needing to be kind of nudged in order to do certain things there, because otherwise, like, nothing's gonna happen. Like, she's not gonna make the best decision. So that's my thought on that. But so speaking of Sansa, is she gonna get it on with Theon? I don't know.
No. Here's the thing.
That look.
It's a possibility.
Giving you those eyes right now.
Yeah, and I think it's very sad because everybody who Sansa like loved or adored or like really sort of like wanted to have a romantic relationship with never worked out at all. You know, Joffrey was a monster, and not Reek, but who's Reek's owner?
Oh, Ramsay.
Ramsay was a monster, right? And Baelish was a monster.
Yeah.
And so we have these men that in her lives that treat her so poorly and so bad that it actually will be nice to see her have a romantic relationship with somebody she sort of grew up with. Weird that it's kind of like her brother, but we got brothers fucking sisters in this show.
Who has no cock. Let's not forget that.
I know, right? He can do a mean scissor, but what's up? I like to see it. If that's something they want to do, sure. I think it'll be nice to at least to have Sansa, have a romantic relationship with somebody who's also been through lots of shit because of his own actions, right? Or I'd love to have Sansa have a relationship not with a man. That'd be great. We have no idea, right? I think that'd be cool. If it doesn't happen, whatever. We know now. I know we'll talk a little bit about this in the battle and the sequence and the plannings of what they think with Bran, or Bran. Mm-hmm. When Theon says that, the the Greyjoy crew is gonna guard him, I was like, y'all are dead. Yeah. Like that's the worst thing to like.
All I can think about is the ship and Yara's face when Theon jumps overboard. I'm just imagining. Obviously, I hope that Bran survives. I hope that all this goes well and Bran continues to be the living memory for everyone in Westeros and in the world. But just, man, talk about signing your death certificate.
But we'll see. Because I think it's going to be... last time, I think we were talking about that. We'll talk about the round table in a second. But all those minds in one room, they're planning for this battle better be out of this fucking world. There should be no, because we had people play with wildfire. We had people set up, they defended the wall, they defended Hardhome, they defended Battle of the Bastards. I mean, there's so much intelligence in that room. They should be able to outsmart some of these dead people. Now, not the Night King, no. Right? I don't think so. And we also saw in this episode maybe it was the next after, but his generals started to kind of walk up.
That was at the end of this episode.
Okay, so we saw his generals also in the horseback starting to walk up, and I feel like these are generals because that's when great moment at Hardhome when we figured out that Valyrian steel can actually stop a White Walker's sort of staff and fucking destroyed him. Great moment. I still get chills at that moment. Yeah. Anyways, so we see all his generals, and we were seeing all the side characters, supporting characters, and the main characters are the living generals too. So I'll be curious to see exactly what happens and how they're going to plan it, because that Night King has a dragon, and I feel like nobody has said anything about him having a dragon.
The only mention is, I don't even think. No, they don't mention it at all. I'm trying to remember, but that was Brandon episode 1 mentioning about Night King having the dragon. There is no mention in this episode. But speaking, you mentioned wildfire, and that's so interesting that wildfire is something that would be a great ally to them in this time of need. I wonder if Tyrion got any when they were down in King's Landing.
They used it all.
So the Mad King had it under a whole lot of places. So you're saying all of that wildfire was used under the Sept of Baelor and in the ships, and now there's no more?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I find that hard to believe.
Not me. No, you just said it yourself. That entire ship. And now we're going back to, what's the name of that battle? Blackwater. Okay, that entire ship was carrying so much of it so that it has to stay in the water and still make a trail to blow up all these surrounding ships, and she has to blow up the Sept.
Yeah.
But Dragonfire is wildfire. So they have wildfire, right? Just not in the pot. What I would have loved to see is create more of it. There's they should have created more with the alchemy that they had, at least in Tyrion's knowledge.
They have any pyromancers in Winterfell, unfortunately.
Not yet.
But nothing beats the look that the pyromancer at the Battle of Blackwater gave when the wildfire went up. It looked like he just came for eternity. It was crazy look on his face.
So good.
We could continue talking about the kind of that round table. Like you said, that was just a lot of great minds in that one room. I worry so much about what's going to happen. But it's just if you need to plan a battle, those are the people you needed in that room.
Yeah.
Or a plan. And I honestly was expecting Tyrion to take a little bit more of a leadership role in terms of planning that. I get why they didn't do that, but he's the only person that really has any experience with like battle plans. He planned the Blackwater.
He's not the only person in that round table.
No. I'm saying that we've seen in this series, we've only seen Tyrion plan a battle.
No, we've seen.
Who else have we seen plan?
Jon and Sansa. Battle of the Bastards.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. But look how that plan went. Jon went rogue.
No, he didn't. That was planned.
It was planned for him to go out on his own, in the middle with no horse, chasing up the Rickon.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Zigzag, Rickon. What's wrong with you?
Rickon, go left. Literally turn any direction other than straight.
Let's talk about that scene for one quick second.
Okay.
Like, I need to just go back. We didn't talk about it last time. That arrow had to be shot with so much force, right? Like that. I feel like that's impossible for that arrow to pierce Rickon directly through the chest
at that distance.
Yeah,
that was that
no
that
way,
make sense to me.
Right?
That didn't make sense to me. But also, Ramsay shot an arrow that missed, and then maybe a second later, a second arrow went through his chest.
So we're on the same page here. That didn't make any sense, right?
That didn't make any sense. They just wanted to kill Rickon.
Now, which would have been great was if Ramsay would have shot an arrow and missed and like laughed, and we see Rickon like running up close to Jon, and a fucking rain all the arrows going to kill him. I'm like, okay, that would have been great.
Yeah, that would have made sense.
Because if he would have zigzagged, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, that's true. But wild crazy theory coming up. I think Rickon's coming back in the Battle of Winterfell.
Shut up.
He is buried in the crypts.
Yeah, but that means that they have.
Else.
I mean, but all the living people are staying in the crypts too. So
yeah, but they're fighting people who can raise the dead. And Rickon's the most fresh body down there that would come back.
Yeah, but that's also been like years.
It has not been years since the Battle of the Bastards. Years?
I thought it was like a year. Was it a year or two?
Time doesn't exist because apparently Gendry can run for like a few hours, and now he's back at Eastwatch.
Okay, hold on. We have completely deviated from talking about this episode.
Okay,
I see what you mean. One second though, you did mention it. You did bring up a good point from that deviation. We saw the Night King bring the dead back. I felt like he could bring the dead back who had recently died. Have we seen like a time frame? Like, have we seen him bring back the dead who's already been dead from just say 2 episodes? That's a long ass fucking time.
Yeah.
Like, did we see him like actually like resurrect people from time?
I don't think we've ever seen him resurrect anyone that hadn't just fallen. I think we've only seen him resurrect people who like just died.
But then I guess it also makes sense why everybody in Night's Watch will be burning bodies.
Yeah.
Because he could seemingly resurrect the dead at any point.
Think back, I think it was season 1 where they brought those bodies in from beyond the wall, and they were like, Sam was like, the bodies don't smell. And they were like, we'll burn them later. Yeah. And then they came back.
We still don't know the time.
We don't know how long that took. Also, think about poor Ned Umba. He had been on the wall, eyes closed, like for however long it was for them to get there.
Yeah.
And then he awakens. Yeah. Like, anyways. But we digress, sort of.
Sorry. Not really. That actually was a pretty good digress. So, all right.
Moving along here to some more highlights. I think it's hard to not talk about Arya in this episode.
Let's talk about her.
Arya has just her transformation from this girl who was like, I'm tough, and like who's like sword fighting with Micah the butcher's boy, and now she's this badass, like I can kill anybody I want, like confident, and just is ready to take whatever she thinks is hers. That's just an incredible transformation for her. I literally have in my notes, getting after what she wants. Like, this just, literally she knows what she wants and she's getting it. Including Gendry. But her line, just like how she knows death and it has many faces, she can't wait to meet this one, sent chills up my spine. I was like, ooh, like, oh, I wonder how she's going to fare in this battle, because we haven't seen her fight in a battle yet.
No.
We've only seen her one-on-one, or like 2-on-3 when she was with the Hound back in the day.
So I'm nervous because anytime they make a character too cool.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Right, because everybody loves Arya. I mean, like, who doesn't like Arya? Like, you're stupid. Unfriend me on Facebook. But, like, everybody loves her. We see her that she has arguably, like, the biggest transformation from characters. Lots of characters have transformations, right? But hers is one of the largest because she still kind of went towards her goal to be a fighter. She always wanted to be a fighter. From the first episode, we see her playing and, like, doing a bow and beat Bran as archery. And in this episode is also harks back to her doing that, which is also great. And her just spending time with, like, armory. She spent a lot of time with a lot of guys and, like, just done a lot of shit. So we actually see her journey was pretty true. Like, she actually never deviated from what she wanted to do. Yeah. And then she made her list, and I love the line of, was he on your list? She was like, for a little while, talking about Beric Dondarrion. I was like, oh, fuck, that's great. And so I like that. I love the fact that her character was the truest form, right? It still stayed there. Mm-hmm. I just get nervous that with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Things from SpongeBob. But, no, but seriously, like, Jaqen H'ghar told her, and she went blind, and that power is not hers. She has to give up all these things. She has to give up her name, and I think she's kind of doing that. She's no one, right? Yeah. But she still does, like she said, don't call me Lady Stark, but she still goes by Arya, and even that she was supposed to give up. So she's still retaining some of this personality of herself, but yet still has all the power that she got from the Faceless Men. Mm-hmm. There has to be consequences coming. And I don't know if she's going to survive. Like, I thought for sure after this episode, now it turns me a little bit on the head, because I have a bit of a theory that everybody with Valyrian steel, and me and CJ talked about this, is going to survive. And Arya has a Valyrian steel dagger, but I don't think she's going to survive at the battle. And if she does survive, I don't know if it's going to be in this. I think she's going to leave and, like, be one with, like, Jaqen H'ghar, or Syrio Forel comes back, which I still think he's going to come back.
I still think Syrio came back. That would be amazing if Syrio made a comeback with his wooden sword.
Not confirmed that he died, man.
No, we don't see him die. We don't see him die. We hear screams in that scene, but we don't know who's screaming. We have no confirmation, because when Arya went to kill Meryn Trent, he was freaking out, so he couldn't say whether or not it happened. Yeah. So I don't know. We don't know. That would be great if he came back. But just, like, harping on what you're saying, just, like, I'm worried for her as well, because, like, if you remember from the season 8 trailer, she's running for what appears to be her life through the halls of Winterfell. I'm just wondering, like, what's scaring her this much. Clearly she's been through the battle, because, like, on her face you see the blood and everything. It's just like, what is happening? What has happened that has caused her to be this, at least on the outwardly scared? Because maybe it's a ruse.
Maybe it's a dream.
We don't know.
Maybe it's a Bran vision.
Yeah. So I have a little worried for her, but she is, definitely a fan favorite, and definitely a favorite of mine.
Ned Stark was also a fan favorite.
Well, we know what happened there. Hopefully Arya keeps ahead, but we'll see.
Keep your cool, Arya.
I think, let's see, what else do I have here? Another thing I wanted to talk about, you brought up a little bit about Valyrian steel, but Sam giving Jorah Heartsbane. After a very charming back and forth between Jorah and Lyanna Mormont, which is, like, I love Lyanna as well.
Super great. I wanted more. I wanted actually more of that scene.
I wanted more Bear Island connections here as well. I thought it was going to happen in episode 1. It didn't. I was a little disappointed, but it's at least good to know that they each know the other exists.
Yeah.
And that they are aware of the stakes, where Jorah's like, you're the future of our house. She's like, I know that. Like, I wish you fortune, cousin. Like, so it's like, it's at least, it was a little bit of like, okay, you have, like, sort of reconcile, I guess. But that was great. But then, immediately after that, Sam giving Heartsbane and Jorah saying that he's going to wield Heartsbane in his father's name, may he rest in peace, and may Ser Jorah rest in peace, because he might as well die right now.
Yeah, I'm still... So, I was locked in. Audience, listen. I was locked in on this Valyrian steel theory for years. And I've just been hanging out and waiting for all this steel to get in one area. And now that when Sam got it, I'm like, well, he's not the best warrior, but like, all right, whatever. You know, somebody else is going to wield that blade, right? I thought it was going to be the Hound, but the Hound uses more of an axe, but we'll see. I'm not sure. But it is a broadsword. And we know... at least that Ice was the largest one, but I think the next one in length was Heartsbane.
Yep.
So, and Ice was fucking gigantic. Massive. So, a big dude has to be able to wield this, and I do not think is Jorah. Unless something surprising happens. But I think that's what I think is going to be the Hound. I don't... It threw a huge wrench when Sam... gives that to Jorah. But Sam has done so much already for Jorah. Like, what has Jorah did for Sam?
That is so true.
I'm so blown away by the fact that I'm like, wait, hold up. Like, I thought there that's what it was. So I was so confused. I was like, wait, hold on. Shouldn't Tormund have that Heartsbane and not Jorah? So, like, that feels like Tormund should be wielding that large fucking weapon. Yeah. He's a huge dude, like, hilarious. I don't think he's going to last either, but he's definitely going to be, we definitely got to we got to definitely talk about that giant's breast milk. Oh my God, I got to order some. But, anyways, so.
That's why I'm so strong.
So, such a great, again, I love this scene. Definitely wouldn't mind if it was removed, but I love the scene. So I was kind of confused about that. That definitely threw a wrench in my plans because I felt like Jorah was definitely one of the people that I know was going to die.
Someone very well may pick up and just can keep going.
Yeah, and so that could happen. So now I'm like, oh well, because I don't know if Arya's going to survive. So Arya's now a bit of a question mark, and now Jorah I don't think is going to is going to live, and so I was also wondering. Now we're in crazy theories. So I know that the Valyrian steel will change hands, and the dagger is gonna get back to Tyrion. And he will. Yeah, I know. And he will be wreaking some havoc. I haven't seen this theory anywhere, so this is hot off the press, y'all. Hot off the press. Tyrion will wield that dagger, and again, it goes full circle. And I think this is a really common thing in storytelling anywhere, right? Jorah Mormont's father was named... Gior.
What a name.
That sword was supposed to go to Jorah Mormont. Yep. He got caught selling slaves and got banished. He dishonored his house like Mulan and said, "You're gone," right? And so now that sword... I'm pulling them all out, bro. Now that sword goes to Jon, and that's how Jon gets the sword, right? Yep. But now it comes full circle back to, well, Sam has the sword that's going to now, actually he does, Jorah, get the Valyrian steel that he should have gotten in the first place anyway. Like Jorah should have gotten the hand that Tyrion also has. There's lots of different things that happens too. So
I see.
Lots of different things going full circle, and that's how I feel like the sword that Arya has as the dagger is going to come back, and Tyrion's going to use it. Where, how, I'm not sure, but we know that Tyrion now is actually a formidable warrior. He was fucking up a lot of people from the battles that he was in. Yeah, but he's also like
a lot of dudes don't have legs anymore.
No, Tyrion. No. So Yeah, what else you got on Valyrian Steel? Because we went through and we talked about him. So we got Heartsbane that's here. So Heartsbane is currently with Jorah now.
Yep.
We got Widow's Wail that's with Jaime.
Yep.
We got Oathkeeper that's with Brienne.
Mm-hmm.
We got Arya's No Name Dagger.
Cat's Paw Dagger, I believe.
Yeah.
Is what it's called in the books, maybe.
And then we have Jon Longclaw.
Yep.
Is there any more?
That are in
the show.
In the show, no.
Yeah. Yes, you nerds. Yes, readers out there. We know there's other ones. You book nerds. We know there's more than those
Bookland
five.
has a lot more Valyrian Steel floating around that's unknown of where they are. But in show world, all the known Valyrian Steel is in Winterfell right now.
I feel like we're missing one. I think we just recounted them all. The reason why, because 5 is a interesting number, although it's like the palm and the big kingdoms. I'm also wondering if there's going to be 7, like the 7 kingdoms and the 7 gods. So I'm curious to see, because it didn't start off as 5, because Ith was 1 and broke into 2.
Yep.
And so I'll be curious to see if something else happens that we actually get more Valyrian Steel randomly.
Yeah, the Golden Company is supposed to have one, but once again, that's a book nod. Not sure if they'll actually bring that in.
The Golden Company is in the show.
They are in the show.
They technically are with Cersei.
Yeah, and Harry Strickland is supposed to be descendant from King Aegon the Fourth's, one of King Aegon the Fourth's bastards, who's supposed to have the Valyrian Steel sword, but it doesn't seem like they have it. But we also haven't spent a ton of time in King's Landing. Cersei's too busy drinking wine, pretending she's not pregnant, or maybe she's not pregnant. We don't know. We'll see.
In this time, they don't know that alcohol is affecting pregnancy, so it's...
The only reason I bring that up is because when she was talking to Tyrion, which we now know she was playing him, she was she wasn't drinking any wine. She kept rubbing her belly, and and then Tyrion was like, "You're pregnant," and she's like, "Yes, I am." And so that's the only reason I'm like, she was drinking wine after having sex with Euron. That's interesting. So. Don't really know what's going on there.
Maybe was she actually drinking wine, or was she just holding a cup?
She definitely took at least a sip, as far as that we see on camera.
Because she could have been drinking wine to throw Euron off.
Yes, that is true.
Right?
She does raise her lip a second time and then stops to say something.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting.
Yeah.
What else? No, the other stuff happening. The great meeting around the fireplace.
Oh.
I know you want to cut that out of the episode because you're way too much.
I think it was too much because there was 2, if not 3, of these scenes. Don't get me wrong. I'm down for one of these scenes. Compile all this together. I love the fact that the people just started wandering in, because it started with Jaime and Tyrion, then Brienne, then Pod, then Davos, then Tormund, then Beric didn't go in. I think that was it. And so they're all just sort of kind of mingling, kind of going in. And I think that all would have been a great sequence if it was all one continuous shot. They go in. They actually go and talks about knighting, why women can't be knights. They end up knighting Brienne. Pod ends with the song. Everybody's like, oh shit, the wine's out. And then it's over. I think that would have been a huge, impactful scene if it was all continuous. The fact that they kind of kept cutting away and back, it felt like it was I just want to see this scene end. I understand why they kind of cut back and forth, because the subject matter changes, but they could have gotten there. This is the end of days. Everything that's going to be, people can still try to sleep with each other, like Tormund's trying to sleep with Brienne, and all the shit that's happening. I love even the moment of just a half cup. Brienne tells Tyrion, he fills it to the brim and even more, and it overspills. You can see Pod's face getting super excited. I'm like, oh, these are those moments that I really, really love. I just don't want it to drag on too long. And that was the issue that I had with that scene, that it came back and they had such a focus on the breast milk, the knighting, the song, right? Yeah. That all could have been one. And I felt like it made it a bit just disjointed.
I think they realized they needed to fill some more time in this episode. So they're like, what can we do?
Yeah.
Let's have Tormund tell a story about how he got his last name.
which is hilarious, which is great if we have a full season. And in this episode, I'm like, how much time did we just spend people just kind of sit, and I'm like, feel free to do that. I definitely don't mind. Make it 6 full episodes. Combine these two, have some moments of silence. I feel like the moments of silence is what gives us the most amount of character development, and how these characters non-verbally are acting and reacting to each other in the set's particular space. That is like the phenomenal type. The action and the reaction sequences that we talked about with John, with Danny, with Sam, right? I think them not saying anything and just simply on their face reacting to what is happening, that's really what people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but that's really what drives me to actually want to be following these characters more. I'm like really invested in this story. I'm like, oh, I love Sam's character as a whole is a very like tormented yet like, but he was bullied all his life and all this stuff, and he was the only person at that time for a long time to kill a White Walker in the most unheard of kind of conditions ever. So it's like, oh, that's pretty badass, and like he has all this knowledge. So I like having those moments. I like seeing those characters growing with those characters. I just think that sometimes they feel like they need to fill these moments of silence and slow moments with these jokes, with these shticks, with these little things, when they could just be like a simple song and just kind of cut out some of the stuff, cut out the fluff.
Yeah, fair enough. I definitely will say that I enjoyed, regardless, like I enjoyed all of those scenes. And it's just like, now I feel like the rest of the series is just going to be like, all right, we got all that out the way. Now let's get to it. With these remaining, four episodes? Three.
4, excuse me.
4.
I thought it was Sunday already. Yeah, so my question to you, let's, we talked about from before, we talked about the past, we talked about episode 1 and 2. What do you think? Or, we can even look, I do now watch the, next on. I watch them because I'm going to get spoiled anyway, so now I just say, fuck it, I'm going to watch it. What are some things that you think... Huh?
I'm proud of you, Warren.
Thanks, man. I don't watch trailers, though. Nah, fuck that. What are some things that you are excited about? Not necessarily some things that you want. I don't want you to have this crazy expectation you don't see. You're like, oh, fuck. But, what are some things that have at least been hinted already in these first 2 episodes and the rest of this series that now, episode 3, let's reel in our focus. Now in episode 3, what are some things that you're looking to see already from something that they already hinted at?
So seeing the little snippet of Viserion and seeing John finally ride a dragon in episode 1, I'm really hoping for an aerial battle. It's like, I feel like that's coming, whether it be Danny v Night King, John v Night King, or all 3 in some way, in some concert. That would be very epic to be happening over the battle as it's happening underneath them. It's hard to see that happening, though, because before that little snippet of Viserion, we see John on the ground, fighting. So it's like, all right, is he going to get on a dragon? The dragons are protecting Bran. I don't really know where all that is going, but I really, really hope that there's an aerial battle in the Battle of Winterfell. I'm assuming that's what they're going to call it, because that would be epic. I'm thinking about just going back to our conversation about Valyrian Steel. How are all of our heroes with Valyrian Steel going to handle that? They're going to they have the most valuable weapon in this entire world, as far as we know, other than having dragons, and it's like, you got to put yourself in the thick of it. You got to be hacking and slashing the whole time. There's no rest for you. Yeah. And then seeing, I'm just going to talk about the whole trailer, seeing Brienne at the front, just red, clearly they've already fought for a while, and now they're just all right, fuck it. This free-for-all, we're just going to try and kill as many people as we can. That just got my, I was getting so excited seeing that and seeing her, in command, Sir Brienne, just getting it done and leading a whole bunch of people to what, their deaths or not. It's just very exciting. I'm very excited to see Brienne in the field. Once again, another person we haven't seen in a battle, as far as I can remember, unless I'm misremembering. I don't think we've seen Brienne in a battle before. We've only seen her kind of like Arya and like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, because she's always been tasked to
go elsewhere,
travel and stuff. Yeah, I guess that's right. We've definitely seen her fight.
Yes,
and we know that she's one of the best fighters.
Yep.
I'm
From
curious.
When she beat the Night of Flowers at the Knights of Summer Fest with King Renly. Yeah. Knights of Summer, little Knights of Summer action there.
He's currently showing off his shirt for you audio listeners. He's like, you show that to me, and they have no idea what you're doing.
This is only for you, Warren.
Thanks,
this
man.
is only for you.
I'm currently being flashed now in my residence. Yeah, I mean, going off of that, like some of the stuff that you talked about, right? I'm curious to see Jaime fight.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because now he's fighting left-handed. I'm curious to see if Bronn somehow pops up somewhere in this, because he was tasked to assassinate him. Yeah, and so it did take Jaime a long time. Let's be real. It did take Jaime a year and a half to get from King's Landing.
And it took King Robert a month to get from King's Landing to Winterfell in the first episode.
So I'm wondering if that's like in the back of my head to see if that happens here. I just want to see now these battles, right? And I just need to see a lot of death. I need to see that. We need to kill off some of these characters now. At this point, Beric Dondarrion needs to go. He's been revived. I think they even hinted at it in this episode. He'd been brought back 19 times, I think it was.
That's what the Hound said. That is an exaggeration. He's been brought back 7 times.
7. But I think that was also something to know that you don't have your Red Priest anymore because he died.
Oh, Thor.
And so we know that Beric Dondarrion is going to die.
Yep.
Also, do you think... I have these theories. I don't know. They just pop into my head like the Mad King. Do you think that...
Burn them all.
Well, do you think that the Hound is going to wield that fire blade?
Oh,
because it comes full circle.
Yeah.
What did I tell you, bro? Right?
I think that is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
I think the Hound is bested for the most part his fear of fire at this point. Because he stared into the fire before they got to Eastwatch. He's like,
that's a whole different reason why he stared into the fire.
Well, that was to see a vision of that mountain. But I think at this point, for him to wield that sword, he needs to be over his fear of fire.
It would be dope. I think it would be dope if he wields that sword.
He wields that sword to kill the mountain.
Oh, now you're just being ridiculous. It's possible, but I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. I don't know. That's a theory. I think
his brother's face.
Oh my
his
God!
Face is
burns his face off, bro.
Yo.
Anyways,
yeah.
Beric Dondarrion has to go.
Mm-hmm.
Tormund, sadly, is going to go, and probably, I think, Tormund is going to have one of the best death scenes.
He's going to go down
it's going to be amazing.
Yep.
And I think at that point, he's going to get like a little acknowledgement from Brienne, and he's going to die with like a smile on his face or something. It's going to be great. Night Watch people are going to die.
You think
Gendry's going to die? Yeah.
You think all the...
Yeah.
Well, I guess they don't need the Night Watch anymore.
Yeah. They don't need the North anymore, man. Here's the thing. I think everything is being raised. Everything is going to hit a reset. So everything outside of King's Landing, which is in the middle, right, is being sort of like... slowly being resetted. And even in this episode number 2, right, and we even talked about like how there's something that is going to happen to allow the dead to walk across the water and get to Iron Islands. It's going to freeze.
Yeah.
Just like Dragon. Yeah. So, like, those places are not safe. And so, all these things are being destroyed. And I think King's Landing is going to be, like, the last one that's going to survive. And then there'll be another battle.
We see in Dany's vision the Red Keep from when she was at the House of the Undying back in Karth. The Red Keep, the roof is blown off. The throne is there, and it seems like it's snowing or ash.
Oh shit, that's right, bro.
So
that's like season 3.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, there are more visions in the books, but like that's a pretty clear, I think, indicator of it's just going to go down in King's Landing.
Yeah,
and it's like, but they leave it up like obscure enough where it like could be Ash, it could be Dany's for dragons, it could be Snow, Night King. So
could be both. It could be a snow dragon.
Yeah. Oh, Viserion.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing that I definitely ties back to what I want to see and what we've seen so far, and what we've seen before. We know. I know you're not last time we talked last week, you were not a huge fan of Bran. You probably still aren't. We know, we know that Bran has had noise. He's had these. He's been practicing this war game, this ability, right? And
which
we
see
that
of this episode, which is interesting.
I don't think we need to.
No, I know, right? But I still thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I don't think we need to is it's about to come. We see him, and we figure out that was happened to Hodor. We see him do it with his son. No, not Sonny. What's the name of Bran's?
Summer,
right. I was like, Sonny's now. Shaggy Dog was the other one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I know. Sorry.
To both of them.
That's the second time we've mentioned Rickon dying this
Rickon.
episode.
Well, we're not going to chalk up his running skills to Shaggy Dog's death.
No, he's also a dumb kid. Anyways, so we've seen Bran do this. I don't know if this was something I know it's a theory that I had or talked about, somebody explored. I think Bran was the reason why the Mad King went crazy, because he warged into him accidentally, going through time and fucked something up. And so that's what made him being so all about this. Way back when I was like, oh, there's 3 dragons. I think Bran is going to warg into a dragon.
Yeah.
And
I've heard
I don't think it's going to be Drogon or Rhaegal.
You think it's going to be the Night King's dragon?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
So
that is a very, very fascinating.
I think that is my theory, and that's what I'm pumped about, because we get a little bit of Bran. I'm glad that we got Bran at least with. I'm messing up these names because we say Bran and Bran a lot. I'm glad that we at least got Bran saying a bit more. He's just not staying in one area.
Yeah. Good to know he's mobile.
Yeah, he's
it's cold up there.
I know.
Got to keep moving, as they say.
But he does have this mark that I didn't realize was going to come back at all, which is a huge thing, and how he's the memory of the world. Mm-hmm. And so that also sort of puts a bit of a stamp and solidifies that he's probably going to have to survive, right? But how is he going to do that? Because if he's just going to kind of keep jumping around. So I think that's one thing I'm pretty pumped about. I'm definitely excited about battling. I'm excited because it's they're going to have these tiered battles, just like any sort of action at adventure games. You have the fodder that they're going to be fighting, which a lot of weird things. And so you have these super people that's going to be doing all these crazy things. Then they fight the generals, and then the general is going to be the hardest battles, and it's going to be kind of a back and forth. Really big in the Japanese animation and manga, if you can't tell. And so you'll have those battles between those generals. Both sides will lose a lot of people, and then ultimately there will be the big battle, right? We saw the Night King and his amazing javelin skills. My boy here, CJ, posting those photos. So we've seen the Night King with these crazy javelin skills and killed this dragon with one hit. And so what's not to say he does that again with these other 2 dragons? What did they do? Are these dragons going to have armor on them? What are they going to do to protect these dragons from him, because he did that with relative ease.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that will protect you from those. The way that it punctured Viserion just made it seem like he could have had as much armor as you wanted. It would not have mattered.
That's true.
Unless maybe Valyrian steel armor of some sort would have mattered.
There's no more.
I know. I'm saying the only thing that would have possibly mattered is we had something like that. Because Valyrian steel can block the ice, how when Jon was fighting with that White Walker and it didn't break his sword, it wouldn't have broken through the Valyrian steel plated armor.
True. If
that were a thing, which there isn't anymore of it. No one knows how to make Valyrian steel anything anymore because it all went with the Doom in Valyria.
Damn it.
No. Yeah. I thought Gendry would be the one to learn, but we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time.
I was like, oh, we don't have enough time.
We don't have enough time.
Okay. Fair enough. Last wrap then. All right. Well, what's your lasting thoughts, CJ? What you got for the episode?
I really enjoyed this episode. I was like whooping, like screaming and hollering, like really, really excited for just seeing these, like how these people are going to prove themselves in the upcoming battle. Jamie proving himself, how maybe Theon proves himself, no TBD, but he definitely seems to be willing to do so. It just seems like a lot of these people are like ready to lay it all on the line, and whatever happens. So really looking forward to next week. It's going to be a crazy episode. I'm just excited.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I'm kind of nervous. I don't know if my heart can take next week. I know we talked about Endgame. I'm set to see it 3 times between Thursday and Sunday.
Purchased 3 tickets to see this movie.
So I'm set to see it 3 times for Sunday, and then we get the chance to see Game of Thrones. I don't know why this is not a judging. I'm just
3 times.
I'm just going to share my this is what I do. I'm pretty pumped. I mean, I'm kind of nervous. I'm pretty pumped though. The reason why I'm nervous is because it's we're now officially in a third of the way through the season, and I just don't want them to front load. It seems like they are. Backloading everything, and I'm like, it's just going to be so exhausting. Each one of these episodes is going to be great, but it's going to be like, I want that now. You've already done it, and now I can't wait another fucking week. But we'll see. And so I'm super pumped, excited. I definitely think, though, the big thing that's going to get a lot of buy-in, a lot of pull, is that they have to kill a bunch of people.
Yep.
And they have to kill some important people. And there is definitely going to be 1 or 2 people that die that's going to make everybody said, oh, shit. I did not see that coming.
Yep. I agree. We got to see a lot of people die, and I truly don't think they win this battle. So I'm probably gonna cry next week, but it's gonna be fine.
That's okay. I'll hold you. We're good.
Great.
And with that, we are the Down in Front Podcast, last call edition. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for joining us. Check out more of our work at downinfrontpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, or we're on Twitter. We're just about everywhere that you can find us. We will definitely be posting this up as soon as possible. CJ, Mr. Cuthbert, where can people find more of your work on the internet?
You definitely can find me on Twitter at IamCuthbert1. Definitely come chat with me, talking about Game of Thrones.
Who's this I Am Cuthbert?
I Am Cuthbert, the non-numeral one, is some dude in Africa, and I'm really pissed.
You and Mocha had this other person out there.
I report him weekly and hope one day that Twitter will suspend his account and let me have the name. But
oh my god!
Until then, I am Cuthbert.
I want to see if I can change my name to I Am Warren. I wonder if I can get that.
Well, you can't have I Am Cuthbert 1 because that's me. Come chat with me. Sports, Game of Thrones, come chat.
Harry Potter,
yeah. Oh man,
the Knicks, the Giants. Let's go.
Yeah,
good stuff. Yeah, we are pumped. We'll be back. We will probably see this guy next week, so we'll see you next week for a full episode 3. We don't know the title of Game of Thrones. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you later.
See ya.